It feels totally surreal that it's been 11 years since I moved to the United States. It's really unbelievable. I pretty much have spent my entire adult life to this day in this country. I don't know if you're new to my channel or not, but my name is Polina, and in this video I want to share why I chose to move to the United States, how living here had changed me, how my journey has been so far, and why I choose to continue living here 11 years later. So I moved to the United States when I was 16 years old. I came here to attend boarding school. I attended the last 2 classes of high school, junior and senior year, and I wasn't totally unfamiliar with the United States. I used to come here as a child and as a teenager to attend summer camps, and also we would just visit as tourists with my family. But then when I moved here, I moved to Massachusetts. That's where my boarding school was located. So I spent my first 2 years there. And the plan was for me to get a really good education in the US and then potentially move back to Russia. So after finishing high school, I got admitted into USC in Los Angeles. So that's where I pursued my undergraduate degree. So at the age of 18, I moved to LA and I ended up living there for 6 years. It took me 5 years to complete 2 of my degrees at USC. Then I graduated in 2020 and I thought I was going to move back home to Russia. And that's when COVID hit. So I actually did go to Russia and I stayed there for like 7 months. But then I also got my work authorization back in the United States. And I was like, since I have this work authorization, I might as well just go back and try out working in the US and see how I like it. So I came back in the middle of COVID and ended up living in LA for another year. And during that year, I got admitted into my master's program in New York City at Columbia University. I actually filmed a lot of videos about that, so I will link some of them maybe like up here. Then fate brought me to New York and I've been living here ever since. It's been 3 years so far of living in New York and I absolutely love it here. And out of these 3 years, I was pursuing my master's for the first 2 and then I graduated and just ended up staying here. And actually this summer my green card got approved. So I'm super excited for that. It's a new development for me. But yeah, overall, I'm just very happy that I'm here and I can continue living here at this point. And I also forgot to mention that I am from Moscow, Russia. That's where I was born and that's where I lived until I was 16 years old. I still visit quite frequently because a lot of my childhood friends and a lot of my family members are still there and they're very dear to my heart, and Moscow is very dear to my heart. Overall, I just think I'm very lucky to have these 2 cultures, which are so different in many respects. But I think at this point, I feel really drawn to both of them and I feel like I can understand both of these cultures. But what I'm going to say in this video will hinge on this idea that these 2 cultures are different, and in some respects I prefer the aspects of the culture of the United States, and maybe in some other instances I prefer the aspects of the culture in Russia. But let's dive into why I love this country so much and why I choose to live here. The biggest reason why I choose to live here is because it is so challenging. It is really challenging to live in the United States, in my opinion, especially as an immigrant. You're faced with challenges on a daily basis, especially if you moved here without your family. And you might consider it to be a bad thing, but in my opinion, that's one of the best things that a human being can face in their lives. It is being challenged on a daily basis. I am a full believer that we only grow when we are outside of our comfort zones. I really believe in that. I also know that it's really uncomfortable to place yourself in challenging situations, in unfamiliar situations, in situations where you might feel alone, in situations where you might feel inadequate, in all these situations, you know? But I feel like a lot of people, as they grow up and as they progress through life, they end up challenging themselves less and less with age. And their comfort zone just shrinks all the time. And I think it's a very unfortunate situation. So for me, coming to the United States and living here, it is very challenging. My family is really far away, and English is not my first language, and there are a lot of things that I have faced over the last 11 years. And I pretty much had to figure things out on my own in a lot of cases. Of course, I had major support of my family, like, for example, financial support. Of course, I always knew that I could fly back home and return to Moscow if I choose to. Of course, all of these factors were very soothing, and I knew that, I'm not in some sort of extreme situation, but I still chose to stay and persevere through these challenges. And I pretty much had to build my life from scratch. Of course, it's much easier to build your life in a setting that is super familiar for you, where you know everyone, where your parents know everyone. Of course, it is much easier, and I'm not saying that this is a wrong choice by any means. I'm sure there are plenty of people for whom this way is the best. But I think for myself, I just feel very alive when I'm challenged, and I feel like I'm making my own way, and I feel like I am discovering who I am on my own terms. I am just always growing here. The second thing for which I love the US is that you can fully express yourself without fear, without reservation. You can be yourself without people judging you. You can choose your own trajectory, and people will accept you with your path. I often find that this kind of attitude is missing in collectivistic societies versus individualistic societies, one of which is the United States. I will give you a silly example. I'm vegan, and I've been vegan and vegetarian for the last 7 years. And here in the US, people can ask me, oh, why did you choose this path? What is your reasoning? And I will explain it, and they will accept my choice because they understand. I am my own person, and I can do my own thing. They don't have to do the same thing. They don't have to force me to do their thing. I don't have to force them to do my thing. We're all separate individuals, and we can choose for ourselves. But when I fly home, for example, people oftentimes start debating with me, or they try to force me to abide by their dietary rules, and they try to prove me wrong. And they are just so dissatisfied with the fact that I chose something different that it's just like they can't rest knowing that I'm doing something that's different. So I have definitely faced much more opposition to me fully expressing who I am back home than here. So that's one of the things that I really appreciate about this country. Another example of the same instance is how the society thinks a woman's life shall unfold. I think back home and in a lot of more traditional collectivistic societies, people expect women to give birth by certain age, or to get married by certain age, or to have X amount of children by certain age. And I think there's just a lot of pressure in such thinking, in such ideology. And I think here in the US, a woman can choose, you can choose, okay, I want to focus on my career right now, and I want to have a family later. Or, for example, I don't want to have children. Or, for example, I want to get married very young and have children young. There are so many different pathways and trajectories, and you can just choose whatever is more comfortable for you. Of course, you can choose in Russia as well. You can choose in collectivistic societies as well. But the pressure you might face, it will be like a major obstacle. It will be weighing you down. You will face it at every single social function. It's that kind of thing. So here I think it's truly a land of freedom in that sense. It is freedom of self-expression. I really like that idea. I like that I can just be myself and explore, and I don't have to, conform to some sort of social rules that someone else established for whatever reason. Another reason why I love living here is because it makes me feel like I have a very diverse, fulfilling life. I feel like I have two worlds to which I'm contributing and in which I'm growing. I have this country, but I can also fly back home, and I have Russia as well. So it just makes me feel, yeah, like I just have a very diverse life, and I get to interact on a meaningful level with multiple cultures. And I also love how here, especially here in New York City, I feel surrounded by very positive people, ambitious people, driven people, energetic people. They just want to almost like take over the world, but in a good way. They want to contribute to the world. They want to work hard. They want to keep growing and expanding. It's just, this city is full of energy. You just can't sit still when you're here. You want to be creative. You want to like channel your creativity into all these different projects. You want to learn. You don't want for anything to hinder your growth. You just like are overcoming all these obstacles and challenges. I think it's very useful to situate yourself in such society because, I don't know, I think we all are kind of like interacting with one another on an energetic level. So whoever is by your side will be affecting you and you will be affecting them. So here, especially in New York, I feel very driven as well. And I feel like nothing is impossible, anything can be achieved. So yes, I love living here because of the way that I feel. That is the biggest explanation. Also, speaking about energetic people, I feel like there's so many morning people in New York City. I love morning energy and I love waking up early. I think my regular wake up time is between like 6 and 7 a.m. And I don't know, I just feel like even at 6 a.m., Central Park is like filled with people running, jogging, cycling, walking their dogs, etc. It just feels like this city has so much energy. And of course, I'm not saying the entire United States is like this, but I think this is like the perfect place to be if you just want to be inspired by all this energy and all this ambition. And lastly, it's important to mention that this is the country where I grew into adulthood. I came here when I was 16 and now I'm 27. And when I was 16, I was still just a teenager, just a child. And now I am like a young adult. So, you know, all of these transformational years here, they made me feel like I associate myself with this culture. I understand this culture and I resonate with it. So I think that's another big reason of why I love living here. The last prompt I would like to address in this video is how living in the United States changed me as a person. First of all, it made me much more open-minded. I think that I started realizing that there is no one-fits-all solution. Of course, we're social creatures and we follow one another, but I think by being exposed to two very different cultures on such deep level, I started realizing that people can be happy in either country on a completely different path, you know? People can be pursuing completely different things and their lives can look completely different and they both can be super happy. Second thing is that it definitely made me much more hardworking and much more ambitious. Here I realized that the sky is the limit. Maybe even not the sky, maybe there's just no limit whatsoever. And I think I just got exposed to so many success stories that I started realizing the only limits there are is the ones we set on ourselves. And so you can achieve whatever you want, you can create whatever you want, but of course you have to be active and you should imagine it in your mind, but then you should take the steps as well. And I really started enjoying the process of achieving my dreams and seeing them come true. The third thing is that I became more independent. I became an independent thinker. I also learned how to solve various challenges, and I feel much more sure of my abilities and my problem-solving skills. And the last, most important thing is that I discovered my inner dreamer here. I started thinking for myself much more, and I started discovering my own dreams. So yes, that is all I wanted to record for you today. Please let me know if you had a similar story to mine, and I would love to hear your perspective. And just thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.